Hey everybody, Jake Reichbart here. Today I'm going to share with you a lengthy lesson excerpt. So have your guitars ready and we're going to have some fun together arranging a song. Perhaps you've seen some of my many hundreds of solo guitar arrangements I have here on YouTube, and the inspiration for these arrangements is right here behind me, as you can see. I grew up with these vinyls, and I draw pretty much from any kind of style imaginable from the pop music of the past 100 years, everything from Glenn Miller to Van Halen, Alan Holdsworth to Motown, and pretty much anything in between. Beatles, I have perhaps 25 Beatles song arrangements, 20 Steely Dan song arrangements, same for Stevie Wonder, rock, hard rock, Deep Purple, Led Zeppelin, and of course tons and tons of classic jazz standards from the 40s and 50s, bebop, dance tunes, movie themes. And if you want to learn how to arrange any of these songs for solo guitar, I can teach you. Just like the excerpt that you're about to watch, which comes from a lesson that runs about 90 minutes, I have nearly 200 additional titles, and they are mostly song specific. I enjoy teaching through specific songs because I can show you hands-on how I approach arranging a song. What's nice about these lessons is that I don't just tell you, do this and you're done, but rather I'll take you through 3 or 4 or 5 different ways to play the same passage. I'll work with you on dynamics, on articulation, and 100 other things that you cannot just put to paper. As I mentioned, these lessons run approximately 90 minutes. The introduction, which runs usually 15 minutes, focuses on the right hand and rhythm, and in this introduction I go through my 3 pillars of rhythmic arranging, the first principle being melody and bass only, the second being rhythmic arpeggiation, and the third, of course, the down stroke that I play with my right hand fingernails to produce that backbeat that everybody asks me about. Nevertheless, I do have 2 main method lessons. The first one, how to arrange any song for solo guitar, running 2 hours, and also an introduction to fingerstyle guitar and solo guitar arranging, running 2 hours and 40 minutes. The information about these lessons, the cost, my full lesson list, as well as a link to the full performance of the song that we're working on today is below in the information. So expand the information, take a look, and let's get started. The arrangement starts with which actually shares a lot of the same traits as the chorus. It's part of the chorus, in fact. So by learning it now, we will, of course, save some work later. The only thing that I believe I do a little bit different is that I don't start right away with a backbeat. I don't play. I start with just finger picking it, just regular without the backbeat. And then if you imagine a band scenario where where only the singer and the keyboard player start, and then on cue everybody else jumps in. So that's this kind of simulation of that. The position is an F minor 7 chord, what you'd call a drop 2 chord. It's a kind of a voicing. It's a very common shape, really. It's a bar chord. I place my first finger on what amounts to the upper 5 strings on the 8th fret. I don't really play anything on the top string, but the finger is there. I also add 2 notes with fingers 2 and 3. So together I have the notes F, C, E flat, and A flat. And that makes straight up F minor 7 chord in the 8th position. And the entire melody is available in this area without really moving much, or certainly not the bar finger. This is the upper melody note. The 2 melody notes that follow are the F on the 3rd string, 10th fret, and the C on the 4th string, 10th fret, which I already fingered. This note is not played yet. When I play this chord, I play it this way. I like the sound of the 7th in there, that's the E flat, but when it comes time to add this melody note, there's no other way to really play it other by giving up this E flat, the 7th. So
then when it's time to play it, I just add it with the pinky. So at this stage, you have a fingering that looks like straight up F minor, not even with the seventh. So the notes at this exact moment are F, C, another F, and the A flat. So the three notes, the three separate melody notes, are placed on three different strings. What I don't do, I don't bother killing off any melody note before hitting the next melody note. And what happens is that as these notes, as a higher note is plucked and then it starts decaying, it becomes the accompaniment note for the next note, even though it's higher in pitch. Typically in a melody or in a chord situation, you're holding a voicing, the highest melody note will be perceived as the melody note. But you also have to add the element of time. If a note comes later in time, even if it's lower in pitch, well, that note might now be perceived as the melody note, especially if the previous note started to decay already. That's why I can play. So even though when I play this note is still ringing slightly, but it has lost a lot of its volume, and this note came later in time. So the later notes become the melody note. Moving on. Here's that syncopation we mentioned before. So I place my bar now, my first finger in the sixth position, and it's a kind of a B flat minor position. A lot of the chords as we go on, you'll see another principle that is often shows up in my arrangement, and that is that each chord, especially if you're playing it in kind of a bar type fashion or other ways as well, will have an alternating bass note that you can play. If you're sitting on a chord for enough of a period of time, you can alternate between the 1 and the 5. For each of these chords, I played the alternating bass note, which is the 5 chord typically. Now, this was an exaggeration of the effect, but again, something that you want to throw in, in a good measured way. It's something that can enhance the arrangement. And the reason we want to do it is for variety's sake. If you're going to play two bass notes for the F minor, 1, 2, 3, and two bass notes for each of the following chords, why not vary a little bit? And typically these bass notes, these alternating bass notes, are going to appear in adjacent strings. The exception, I said most of the time, so the exception, of course, is the 7th degree of a scale that has a -7 flat 5 chord. So you're going to have to find the flat 5. So for now, it would appear that we're playing the 6th degree, 2nd degree, 5 degree, and 1 degree in the key of A flat. In the key of A flat, the 7th chord is a G-7 flat 5. This is an aside, of course. So the alternating bass of the G-7 flat 5, of course, is not the D. You can hear how dissonant that sounds, but rather the D flat. I don't think it's something that occurs in this song, but I thought I'd just mention it. Back to the arrangement. So the whole thing about the 5 started because, as I mentioned, I'm holding down my first finger across all the strings in the 6th fret, but my 3rd finger is usually ready, or some other finger, depending on what voicing I'm playing, is ready to play the 5 if I wanted to. Without the 5, I don't have to bother fingering this F. But then I added it. So the melody now is E flat to D flat on the 3rd string, frets 8 and 6, while holding down this chord. maybe I didn't mention, this was a B flat minor 7 chord with this melody. Moving on now to an E flat 7 of some kind. Oftentimes when I play it, I don't even bother play a full chord. For one thing, I'm not a big fan of this interval right here between the 7th and the 3. I find it dissonant, so I might just play the E flat in the bass and just the melody. And in fact, what's going to happen is that the melody notes to follow happen to be the arpeggiated melody notes that make up the chord. However you finger it, you can finger it like this. I tend to do it with separate fingers. I don't know why. You can certainly finger it like this. And what I'm doing basically is, at the same moment, I'm playing the E flat bass and the first melody note in this chord, which is the G on the 2nd string 8th fret, and it's followed by the E flat on the 3rd string 8th fret and the B flat on the 4th string 8th fret. And that's what I meant before, that these 3 notes together that are the melody notes also spell the E flat triad. That's why I mentioned that I'm not worried so much if I'm not playing a full chord right at this moment, because it will be followed immediately by the remaining chords, and the melody notes themselves make up the chord. You can see in this case I'm using separate fingers. That's just one way to do it. If it's easier for you, just... And you can play the whole chord. No reason not to. It's just a matter of, small preference. It's the kind of thing where in an arrangement, it's really not crucial one way or the other. It's just, I don't know, if you like to add a little more salt in your soup or not. That's all this is. It's just a matter of small, little nuanced differences that make no difference one way or the other. So, E flat, and the next melody note is going to be the C on the 3rd string 5th fret against an A flat major. I only need really 3 notes to spell out this chord, and that would be the A flat in the bass, 6th string 4th fret, along with the G on the 4th string 5th fret, that's the major 7, and this melody note, the C, is the 3. But of course now my pinky, remember I said different fingers are available for this. My pinky is available to play that alternating bass note if I wanted it. Put together,